the, the floor to Professor Paul Ortiz. We also have the Vice President of the Association of the Union, Professor Oscar. If you're talking about grievances on how to tackle administrators when they have grievances, I think the experience that Professor Oscar has will go a long way in helping your own institution on this. So without further ado, we will yield the floor. It's a conversation, we're sharing experience, and I know that the time difference is also making it a little difficult. So I will be doing some of the background things to ensure that we have a robust conversation, simply to build bridges, because one of the things we struggle is that you might be struggling and winning victories in your own part of the world. Others might be going through the same, and we can inspire ourselves. And basically, that is what this pilot virtual forum is about. So, Professor Ortiz, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Otola, and thank you so much, comrades, for being here. It's a great honor for me to be here with my union comrades, brothers Cole and brothers Oscar, who are both vice presidents of the United Faculty of Florida. And just to let you know, we are affiliated with two different, primarily teachers unions, or educators unions in the US, the American Federation of Teachers and the National Educational Association. And we're the higher education chapter of the state Florida Education Association. Just to let you know, there are 67 counties or districts or school districts in the state of Florida. All of them are unionized among our primary and secondary school teachers. And in fact, all of our universities, and this is interesting because you may be familiar with the history of the US as being very hostile to unionism. And by the way, this is why it's so important to have brothers Cole and Oscar and our very, multiracial, and I'll say multinational union leadership, because we have leaders in our union who bring us wisdom about trade unionism from Nigeria, from Latin America, from India. And these are experiences we have in our union's executive committee, which really helps us get a greater understanding of what unionism is. So again, every university in the state of Florida, every public university is actually unionized among the faculty. Now, we are a right to work state, and so that means we have to organize every member. Members do not automatically join the union. And so the different universities have different membership rates. What we do at the United Faculty of Florida, at the University of Florida, and again, I think it's important to have brothers Oscar and Cole here, because, and as Cole mentioned earlier, Oscar is also on our grievance committee. He's also on our bargaining committee. And if you look at my two comrades from the union, what they do for us is, and Cole has been very active in morale issues and reminding us the importance of how the union can become more meaningful in our faculty colleagues' lives on an everyday basis. And this is everything from making sure we have t-shirts. I'm actually wearing a United Faculty of Florida t-shirt, buttons, social events, keeping our morale raised up at all times. And then Oscar, with being on the grievance and bargaining committees, we've been able to make a lot of gains for our colleagues. And I'll talk about some of the local gains and then kind of pull the lens out, or the camera out, if you will, a little bit. But in terms of local gains that we've made, you probably have heard that, you may have heard the University of Florida is in the crosshairs of a national struggle over intellectual freedom in the United States. And I want to stress it is a national struggle, and I know there are international dimensions to it, but I'll just talk about what's happening in the United States. here in Florida, but also in states like Idaho and Texas and other places, teachers, primary and secondary teachers and librarians especially are being targeted. And you may have heard that a lot of our ruling class elites have been funding these so-called parents movements to go into schools and now even universities to demand that they ban or censor novels, science books that talk about global climate change, novels by people like Toni Morrison, our greatest novelist, because people argue that, well, Toni Morrison novels make white people very uncomfortable, and so they should be pulled from public institutions. And in fact, right now, there are a number of state legislatures who are considering laws to actually make it a felony to offer these books that are banned by state legislatures. So we're in a serious crisis of intellectual freedom. Now here, as Oscar can give you more detail from his perspective on the grievance committee, we were told really starting about a year ago, that our outside activities, that is the things we do as faculty members outside of our regular teaching and research and service activities, we were told that outside activities would be looked at with greater scrutiny than ever. But at the same time, we were also told by the university, and we should have known, we did know, I think, our university administrators are like bosses anywhere. They want to maintain control of their company, of their firm. They told us that these outside reporting activities, or when we reported outside activities, they wouldn't try to limit our academic or intellectual freedom. Of course, they lied. They lied right to our faces. And so we had a number of cases starting in the fall. And it's interesting, these cases that involve attacks on intellectual freedom at this university have been aimed especially at Chinese and Chinese American faculty and African American faculty and colleagues who do work on social inequality or voting rights of any kind. These are the main colleagues who've been targeted and have been attacked for their work. And they've been attacked not from the outside. Remember, I mentioned the rule. We have a ruling class in the US. A lot of people don't like to admit that here. A lot of scholars don't like to admit that, but we do have a ruling class. But unfortunately, the attacks that we faced at our university have been attacks directed from within, from our administration, from our board of trustees, in some cases from our own colleagues. This is why I'm so grateful for our union, because our union has been able to step up and defend a number of colleagues whose rights have been violated, who were told by the university, no, we don't want you doing that activity because, oh, we heard you're going to be testifying on behalf of voting rights in the state of Florida. We don't want you doing that because the state of Florida has passed legislation against voting rights, making voting much more difficult. And if you testify on behalf of the African-American organizations that have been pushing the state on this, if you do that, then you're going to be making us look bad with the state. And we have been told bluntly by our university administration, in fact, our president, and Oscar and Cole, correct me if I'm wrong, but the president of our university even claimed that he was the state. And so we couldn't go against him. And so this is when the union really kicked in. And we have filed individual grievances on behalf of members. We have filed a chapter grievance on academic freedom. And I'm really proud of the way we've been able to step up and defend the rights of our faculty, which are really imperiled, and not just on this campus, but I think really nationally. The other thing I'll mention is the importance of tenure. And this is a thing that can be easily forgotten, but as a union, we represent tenured and non-tenured track faculty members. And it's always a challenge to be able to think about representing members from different departments, different colleges, different employment conditions. If it was up to me, but this happened 30, 40 years ago, we would have fought like the devil to prevent there from ever being a two-tier academic system such as we have now. And so if you're familiar with that system, you know that you have oftentimes tenure or ladder rank faculty, and then you'll have lecturers, then universities increasingly will hire adjuncts to fill in part-time positions because they don't really want people on the tenure track. And we know that college administrators in this country don't want tenure faculty, or they want to reduce the number of tenured faculty. And every time there's a poll taken, by the way, the majority of college administrators generally vote, the majority of them actually generally vote that if they had the opportunity and they thought they could get away with it, they would abolish tenure. Now, the reason that is, and we think of tenure as job security, it's simply saying, if you want to fire me, you have to give me a reason, right? And the reason it's so crucial is, and oh, by the way, the other thing I want to dispel, you may have heard that there's a myth going around in the media in this country, and some you hear administrators say this: tenure is not a guaranteed job. It's not a job for life. You'll often hear right-wing reactionary legislators say that. They'll say, well, there shouldn't be any guarantees of a job for life. Well, that's not what tenure is. You can be fired even if you have tenure. And we've had cases in Florida where that's happened on numerous occasions. And some of you may have heard recently, in fact, there was a case, I think, in one of our Central Florida campuses where a faculty member who was tenured, in fact, was fired. And there were circumstances around that. But getting back to the University of Florida, all of our faculty who have come forward with examples of their intellectual freedom being violated by the University of Florida, every single one of them, to my knowledge now, so far, have been tenured, because they have that little bit of job security, which gives them a little bit of autonomy and independence and confidence that if they step forward to talk about a labor violation in their institution, they won't just get kicked to the curb or fired right away. In many cases, in one of the grievances we filed around academic freedom, and Oscar can talk a little more about this perhaps, but the faculty member in question, there were about 10 faculty members who were wronged, who were told that if you want to continue to pursue questions of racism and inequality in public education in Florida as your research, then I think you need to find another job. That's what they were told, point blank, by one of our associate provosts. And we have that documented. And so a number of faculty were told, were abused in this way, but only one of those faculty at the time had tenure. He was an associate professor. And so he was able to step forward and we filed a grievance on his behalf. But the other assistant faculty, most of them faculty of color, African-American faculty especially, didn't feel confident with stepping forward. They didn't want their names associated with the grievance because they don't have tenure, and they're very fragile in terms of their rights on the job until they get tenure. So just to kind of wrap it up, and I apologize, I'm sure Brother Cole, and please give me the cutoff sign.
No, you're okay. You're perfectly okay. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to talk kind of move, but definitely move towards a wrap up, kind of the lessons that we've learned. And then, Cole and Oscar, I know you have, because again, without the two of you, we couldn't have done anything that I'm talking about right now. So the lessons we've learned, one of them is how important solidarity is, sticking together. And, it's the little things. It's even having, events like this, or having like at 3 p.m. Eastern time today, we're going to go and get together and have some beer and have an end of semester kind of get together, for those of us that are still around. And it's the mutual support. It's stepping up for each other. It's giving a phone call or a supportive email. Hey, comrade, how are you doing today? I'm sorry that they had I'm sorry you had to endure this. And also, I'll have to say, I may be naive, but I grew up in a union background. I am a first generation college student. My father was heavily active in the Puget Sound Naval Shipyard. I grew up in a shipyard town, and unions are so important for things like worker safety, for pensions, for rights on the job. But I never imagined when I became a union president that in some ways our most important struggle has been this struggle around intellectual freedom. Because I guess, and I should have known better, because as a historian, I should have known, the United States was not a country born with academic freedom in any way, shape, or form. The history of our public universities in the US are that even public education for the first several generations was designed for the children of the elite. And certainly in the South, our oldest public universities, like the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, the University of Virginia, Thomas Jefferson's University, were obviously designed for at first the sons of wealthy white males, plantation owners, slave owners, masters. Later, they were open to women in some cases. But African Americans had to struggle and were really not able to gain admission on a large level to any most U.S. universities until well into the 60s and sometimes well into the 1980s. And so that tells you right there that academic freedom in any meaningful sense is a very recent innovation in the United States. And I shouldn't say innovation, it's part and parcel of the generations of struggles. And the reason that we say that the University of Florida picked on the wrong group of people to try to silence us and to try to stop our intellectual freedom, and they picked the wrong union to fight with, certainly, is that the reason our union organized in the late 1960s and early 70s, it wasn't primarily over wages and working conditions. It was primarily over the question of academic freedom. Because, comrades, we had generations of faculty at this campus who were fired or punished or humiliated by the University of Florida because of their political beliefs. We had many faculty who were fired here because they said something negative about the Confederate General Robert E. Lee. We had one faculty member who was fired in 1920 because he publicly criticized President Warren G. Harding, who at that time was president of the United States. We had faculty fired here because they were accused of students of being lesbian, gay, or bisexual. And that was during the Johns Committee era. That was a state committee that was our kind of state version of McCarthyism. We had a faculty member who was kidnapped from this campus, beaten, tortured, and castrated because he was a Catholic, and he was accused by the Ku Klux Klan in our town of Gainesville of promoting Catholicism to the white Protestant students. And in all these cases, do you think that the University of Florida stepped up to defend the intellectual freedom of any of those faculty? Well, of course they did, because they were part and parcel of their cultures. Just like now, the University of Florida sees itself as representing the administration, that is, sees itself as representing not the people of Florida, but the right-wing legislators in Tallahassee, our state capital. And so that's why our union has really mobilized a lot around the issue of intellectual freedom. We thought, again, naively, this year was going to be a little smoother, because last year, as Brother Oscar can tell you, we worked overtime through both summers, constantly filing and grievances, defending faculty who were being pushed back into the classroom by our administration during the height of the global pandemic. And these were faculty colleagues who were stage 4 cancer survivors, or who had diabetes, who had multiple notes from doctors saying, please do not put this faculty member in a small classroom with students. This is even before there was a vaccine available for COVID-19. And we had a heartless administration saying, oh no, that's fine. We want to put all the faculty back in the classrooms because we want to make our governor happy. And that's what's really happened to our university is, instead of being a public university, it's become the University of Ron DeSantis, who happens to be our state governor now. And so it's really been up to the union, in addition to defending our members on a day-to-day level and doing the things that unions need to do. Our union has had a much broader meaning. And I think now a lot of people look to us. We've gotten a lot of notes of solidarity from union comrades all over the world. And even our own retired faculty who still live in the area say that, we really look to the United Faculty of Florida now to maintain the traditions of public education in this country, because if the unions don't do it, obviously our current administrators are not interested whatsoever in doing it at all, because they are bowing to the interests of the ruling class in this country. So now I definitely know I'm starting to ramble, Brother Coley. So I will, if you any comments or ideas or questions, I'd be happy to respond. And again, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's wonderful getting to know you, looking at the chat bar, and we're very honored at the United Faculty of Florida that you had us, and thank you again for organizing this, Coley.
Thank you very much, Paul. I think it will be, I'll yield the floor to Professor Oscar. He would also give us, and then we would have those who are present from the various institutions to just introduce themselves and then share with us what they are also doing. Now, Oscar, over to you.
Yeah, well, hello, everybody. I'm a professor of chemical engineering, so I'm sort of the odd professional in the union in some sense. What I think is striking is that, or to share with you, is that there is something happening in the air that is pushing the labor movement, definitely in the United States, and I presume also in Europe, as may be confirmed or denied by some of the attendees, is pushing it forward. It's giving it, they're very, very propitious winds at this particular point for actually participating in a movement that can actually contribute to improving not only the working conditions of everybody in the societies that we live in, but in changing perhaps the fate of the world. So I guess that you may say that I'm over dramatizing, but I have never seen in the United States a rise in labor visibility as I have seen in these last 30 years. I mean, I have never seen in the last 30 years what I have seen in the last 2 or 3 years. You could tell that we're all academicians and we're pretty much into the individual fights that we have to face. So, but we'll soon move out of our little universe. We wanted to share with you that we have been in pages of the international press lately because of a few significant issues that arose at the University of Florida that our union was able to handle very favorably for the faculty, and they all have to do fundamentally with freedom of speech. So the story there was that 3 faculty members wanted to testify as expert witness for a law firm that was challenging some mandates that our Governor DeSantis in the state of Florida had imposed in a fashion that it was going to be argued that was unconstitutional, inappropriate. And the university essentially just told the faculty member, you don't have the right to testify. You don't have the right to exercise your opinion on issues where you're actually a world expert on. Essentially, we won that battle, but the university received tremendous condemnation everywhere in the world. And so we think that this is a propitious time for people to start having a dialogue, university academicians and people from all other endeavors in societal endeavors. I think that we need to start a conversation for the purpose of figuring out what's going on in our own shops. What can we learn from each other? And I'm delighted to see from those who have identified yourself on the chat that we have somebody who is representing, and I presume is a founding member of the Pan American Chamber of Commerce. We have an entrepreneur, Sion. I went to the webpage of the company, and the very first thing that you're hit with is a big banner that says "Empower Women." Wonderful. We have a representative from a university in Angola. So we have a very mixed composition in terms of experiences, geographical locations, endeavors, but I think the cause is one. So we've already spoken a little bit, perhaps too much at length in terms of what concerns us. We went, of course, under the erroneous presumption that our world is visible to everybody, but it isn't. And that's why we're here, to have a conversation, to tell you how we mounted these attacks against very, very powerful forces, because essentially we rose against the almighty state of Florida, and we succeeded in imposing the rights of who we are, workers, employees of the state. And we're looking forward to learning a little bit from your individual experiences. I'd like to invite you to put some of your information on the chat, so we get the opportunity to learn a little bit about you. And I'm going to turn it back to Cole then, so that we can engage in a wider conversation phase.
Good. I think the very first person to arrive here is Professor Catarina from Angola. She's just done a book on academic freedom in African universities, which is called Public Humanities. So if Professor Catarina can please turn on her camera and introduce herself and the work that she's just recently done. And then we will go around, with us introducing ourselves and sharing.
Okay, just
All right.
a moment.
I have also sent charts to most of you. If you just check, you would see, getting ready to introduce yourself and your work. Okay, you have the floor.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble setting my camera, so I'm going to try to do so. But meanwhile, to save time, I will start to say thank you so much to Paul for this chance of meeting you guys, and also for this chance of sharing what I believe are global concerns, and we should be in solidarity, ready to face them. So I'm speaking from Angola, and I'm at the coordination of the Social Sciences and Humanities Lab at the Catholic University of Angola. You must have, first of all, a bit of a background around the country. The country became independent in '75, one of the last colonies to gain independence. And in the first decades of independence, there was in place a Marxist government with centralized planning and all sorts of characteristics of a very centralized state. In the beginning of the 90s, there was a political opening. The multi-party politics was adopted, as well as free market economy. In this context, the public university is still the #1 actor in our higher education system, but the liberalization movement gave rise to a number of private enterprises that open up universities. It is similar around many countries, this process. Well, in the last couple of years, the higher education system has been under even greater pressure than it used to be. In fact, ever since its independence, higher education has been under pressure in order to obey to political conformity, which prevails until now. What is striking right now, has been fueling the situation up to an explosive point, is that this political conformity has been reinforced by extreme forces of precarity among the academic community. So we can see very clearly two forces at play here. One of political conformity, which is typical of autocratic states like our own, and the other one, the adoption of neoliberal policies presented as the goal of development, or the sign or the consubstantiation of development, whatever that means. And this has hurt profoundly academic freedom. But I would say that it's not a matter only of academic freedom, it's also a matter of intellectual freedom in itself. In fact, we are seeing a number of signs that say that we shouldn't engage in political activity. Just this week,
Katarina, you have gone silent. Perhaps you can hear me. Okay. I think, colleague, that we have lost her. She has, she's no longer in the chat.
Maybe we can go to Professor Gbenga Oduntan from.
Katarina is back. Hello, Katarina.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Katarina, we lost you. We can see that you're logged on. I don't know if you are.
I'm sorry, but my internet connection is very frail. Sorry.
It's okay. We understand.
So I was trying to explain that we have been facing increasing political pressure, not only to change curriculum, but also to readdress our own language. For instance, like the first colleague that spoke mentioned, instead of speaking about inequality, we should speak about asymmetry. So there is this depolitization of language, which is very, very dangerous. And the other fact that I would like to underline here is that this is not just a matter of the university, the institution, or this is not just a matter of our own intellectual freedom. This is a matter of what kind of society do we want to embrace in the future. This is indeed very dangerous. There is also a political reform aimed at a higher education system, whereby, for instance, the curriculum of the universities and the different degrees and different seminars and all that is to be centrally defined by national authorities. And we don't really know who are the experts that were being mobilized. Are they organic intellectuals? Who are they? And we really don't know what we are going to be able to teach, for instance, next year. So I will end here, and thank you so much. I hope that I wasn't too annoying.
Oh,
Thank you.
no, you were not. Let's quickly just go on to United Kingdom, to Kent University, where we have Professor Gbenga Oduntan. Just in a nutshell, your reaction, your comment, and introduction of yourself.
Thank you very much, Kole. My name is Gbenga Oduntan. I am a reader, associate professor of international commercial law at the University of Kent. I've been a member of the union from the very get-go of becoming an academic around the years 2003 to 5. And I share a very, I see the truth in what one of the last speakers said about the fastening of union activities, the quickening of demand for union activities. Between 2003 and 2008 or 9, I didn't even know that there was such a thing called a strike in the UK education system. But right on cue, immediately after the credit crunch and global recession, between then and now, we've had nothing less than 8 strikes in increasing severity, to the extent that we are beginning to wonder whether our striking levels is beginning to approach developing world status, like strikes that you witness in countries like Nigeria. To make my point clearer, I need just to say that last week we had a strike across UK institutions. By the way, I belong to the University and College Union, UCU. That's the overarching main union in the UK. We just had a strike, a 4-day strike last week on the issues that are perennial to our interest. We find ourselves returning to them over the last few years, including one, the need to address the scandal of the gender, ethnic, and disability pay gap. That's, rather than solving, seems to be increasing in severity. Also, we have been experiencing, I can't say about your various jurisdictions, but in the UK, we've been experiencing a particularly pernicious problem of casualization of university staff, teaching staff contracts, where people are offered 0-hour contracts and go unpaid throughout the summer holidays, don't have a stable contract, permanent contract. Entire departments seem to run on a system of hourly paid lecturers. That is shocking that in a profession that's so central to the entire project of mankind like ours, that such a thing could have been developed in a first world, as we like to call them, society as this. So that was another point which led to the strike, the recent strike. Then the increasing workloads driving our members to a breaking point. And generally the problem of low pay of staff. So I tell my students, and I apologize to them every time I meet them, that I'm sorry for them. They seem to be the first generation to pay the highest fees for their education in the history of mankind. Of course, in the US, maybe you are a bit more used to high salaries, but sorry, so not salaries, school fees, hopefully salaries as well. But in the UK, when I started teaching 2003, 2005, students were paying practically nothing. And now they are paying home students, what we call home students with full UK citizenship, are paying £9,000 plus. £9,000 plus for tuition alone, not for their accommodation, which they also have to pay for. And foreign students pay £15,000. But just at the time that we get the highest fees in the history of mankind, the lecturers are getting the least pay. Also, perhaps in qualitative terms, in the lowest salaries in the history of mankind. Only this generation of human beings can produce such a contradiction. This is the reason why I believe that university unions are very important. I have circulated this invitation to our university top union officials, and they have promised to be involved in all future events like this. And I've also circulated it to other universities in the UK that I have contacts at. Congratulations to the planners of the event. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So that we'll move back again to the US. Dr. Renuka should be prepared, but we also have Professor Everett Green. And he is the coordinator and founder of Philosophy Born Out of Struggle. He's based in the United States. If he would please oblige us by turning on his camera, introducing himself, and then we will take it up from there. Professor Green. Hello, Professor Green. Well, he appears to be there, but I'm not sure he can hear us. Ask to unmute. Okay, maybe. Okay, ask to unmute. Right. How come I'm not? Let me get the unmute button. I'll be with you. If we can't get him, then okay. So it's actually not from here. Okay. Then let's have Dr. Renuka from United Kingdom as well. If we can, if there's any way we can get to Professor Green, we will also take his contribution. Over to you, Dr. Renuka.
Let me interrupt you for a second. Kole, can you make me co-host so I can?
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll do that. Okay.
Dr. Thakore.
Let's see.
Yeah, I think we can listen to Dr. Thakore while we figure this out.
Okay.
So thank you, Dr. Kole, and thank you, everyone. I think I'm just first to introduce myself. I'm a founder of Global Sustainable Futures Progress to Partnership Network, and I'm also a research officer at University College of Estate Management, Reading, UK. And I come from the built environment practices, but I have eventually grown as systems thinker and sustainability and transdisciplinarity researcher. And mainly my global Sustainable Futures Network is open, transparent platform, especially to connect global North and global South. And we have adopted Sustainable Development Goals as our framework and the vision that no one should be left behind. And we are trying to encourage early researchers to engage with all the academics and businesses from all over the world and make some impactful, environment where they can strive for their progress. Just last Friday, we delivered an annual conference, which was extremely successful with 6-hour conference, and we had multidisciplinary and multidimensional speakers from all over the world. Yeah, I completely agree with Gbenga Oduntan from Kent. What he said is exactly what is happening, and I cannot say more. He has mainly spoken all the points which I had to tell from UCU here in UK. Certainly, there is a potential to come together because our UK environment is also now becoming very similar to the rest of the world, where we have no more security, especially part-time lecturers, and do not have security, as well as there is low pay and higher fees, and also the demand on work is so high that all lecturers are struggling, and therefore I think it is impacting the teaching style. These lecturers have no time for research, and therefore we cannot bring in the innovative or latest research to the teaching, where actually just now in this current environment, students need the most. In the environment of climate change and sustainable future, where we need to input them with the latest information, and that is lacking. We are still teaching 20 years old lectures in all the school classrooms, which is not really having a real impact on the change we want. And so it is very important that we have got together on such a critical issue here, and we need to get together more and more to understand each other and how we can go forward. So thank you very much for having me here, and I will stop here. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not sure what is happening with Professor Green. Professor Green, if you're there, please let's indicate either in the chat or not. But we'll be alternating between the US and the UK. And we have Professor Demude from Arkansas. And so please, could you give us just a general overview of what is happening in the university in that area? Do you have unions? What is the state of union? How did you cope, or the union help faculty to cope with COVID, or any other issue that you would like to bring to the table?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. I greatly appreciate it. But having said that, I've taught at Georgia, the state of Georgia, like Georgia State, Georgia Tech. I've also taught at Arkansas Tech. I've also taught in Texas, University of Texas and Texas Tech. So for these three states, Georgia, Arkansas, and Texas, I would say, unfortunately, we don't have union. In other words, I was surprised when Gbenga was saying they have strike in UK. I've been in the US for 23 years, both as a graduate student and faculty in these three states, Georgia, Texas, and Arkansas. Unfortunately, I've never experienced any strike. And because we don't have union in Arkansas, I can see that the administrators are taking advantage of part-time faculty. In other words, they will hire them, they will give them a lot of teaching load, and they will pay them peanuts. So in most departments in College of Business, both in Georgia, Arkansas, and Texas, that's what they do. They will hire a lot of faculty as adjuncts part-time, and they will pay them peanuts. Not only that, you can see that, and because of this policy, there are many minorities who have PhD in business administration. Not because they have that perception that if you are a faculty in the College of Business, you are one of the highest paying faculty in our university. So a lot of minorities, they teach part-time adjunct faculty in the College of Business, and they are being paid peanuts just because we don't have all these unions. So they are taking advantage of that. Currently, I'm in Arkansas Tech, and I'm a professor in business data analytics. So did I answer your question, or should I proceed?
Yes. Yeah, we just want to I mean, you've given us a good view. And I think maybe when we have question time, if there's anybody who has questions for you, you've heard what we're doing. And yes, every time I contact the UGA, they keep trying at University of Georgia, Athens, to have some form of unionizing, but it's not been impossible. Well, let me move again to the United Kingdom while we're waiting to get Professor Green on. We have Dr. Margaret Kadiri. Please, if you could turn on your cam and just introduce, to us what the situation is in your place. How are you as professors handling the situation of COVID? What are you doing that is different from what we did? At every stage at the University of Florida, we got the administration to listen to us. So over to you, Dr. Margaret.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kwale Odutola. So my name is Dr. Margaret Kadiri. I'm a lecturer at King's College London, and I'm also a union member as well of the UCU, so the same union that Dr. Gbenga Oduntan is involved with. And I have to say my union at King's, we're very strong. So we have a significant amount, well, not every academic staff member is a member of the union, but we have a good amount of union members in my union, and in my department in particular, a significant amount of my colleagues are part of the union, including teaching assistants. So my own experience of being a member of the union at my university has been very positive. So I'll come specifically to the COVID situation, but just to give a general perspective, because like Dr. Oduntan was saying, that I was also, for want of a better word, victim of casualization. I was a teaching fellow before I became an academic member of staff. And there was this cycle of yearly renewal of contracts. And even now that I'm a full-time member of staff, permanent member of staff, I know a significant amount of our teaching also falls on teaching assistants. So there's still that casualization impact. And so that in itself is an issue with universities, I suppose, not just my own institution, but I guess all institutions in the UK have that, to the best of my knowledge, have a similar problem. And so if I come to COVID, the union has been quite positive in terms of getting the university to listen. Yes, we haven't always gotten what we wanted in terms of letting staff members work from home, just to reduce the impact or the possibility of contracting the virus by commuting to work and stuff like that. But there's also been a change of leadership in the university, which has also brought a different spin on how attentive they are. Even within our union, there has been a change of leadership as well over the years, which I can see how things are improving in that regard. So I have to say, I have had a positive experience being a member of the union. And I agree with everything that Dr. Oduntan has said about, what has been going on in UK universities over the years with regards to the recent strike we just had, which I was also a part of. And now we're working to contract, so it's 9 to 5. And I can proudly say my department contributed significantly to the success of that, of us getting a number of votes to be part of the strike, because not every university in the UK had enough votes to join the strike action. So yes, so I would say it's been positive being a member of the union, and our union is strong and continues to grow strong. And to agree with Dr. Oduntan on all the issues he had put forward about what's going on in UK universities. So I think I'll stop there to give others a chance.
Thank you very much. Professor Iyamu is of South Africa, but I know that he has another conference that he's also, but when he's ready, we would like to also listen to what is happening in South Africa. Johnny, I would call you when you've listened to what everyone has said and maybe the intervention of the arts. I can see that Professor Green is on the standby now. If you will turn on your camera in a minute, you can have the floor, sir. Okay. So what we want to hear from you is introduce yourself. If you've been involved with any academic union on in any of your American universities, we would like to know what your take is on academic unionism.
Hello.
Hello, sir. We can hear you.
Well, I'd like to welcome everyone who is part of this program. I might have to tune out. I'm trying to multitask at the moment. Well, historically, we all know that union has played a significant role, primarily in Europe and certainly in the United States. And so there was a time when in the professorate and the academia, union was despised, but because of corporate takeover of every single university without any exception. If you know any exception, I would be delighted to know that. But this is where it is at the moment. That's why it is highly necessary for people to organize, unionize as a way. It is also a primary way of getting some respectability. There is a union at my institution that is being formed and has been fighting a courageous battle with the institution because they give the impression outward that they were trying to follow federal guidelines in terms of unionization, but implicitly they would like an institution without any union. And so the struggle is being waged now. The people who are in charge of the union have gotten in touch with from the state legislature and their local representative to participate, to forward a letter of concern and a letter encouraging the institution to follow federal guidelines and not to interfere with unionization. And so that's a way I think that more institutions might be going in certain United States to get to their legislatures and other people in government and other civic bodies to give them encouragement and to monitor institutions that they will not violate federal regulations. So these are very, we are living in a time now of completely corporate dominance at every era of our lives, and the educational institution, universities are now, have been for some time, a corporation with the same type of motivation to suppress worker rights and independence and control over your workspace. So they are behaving just like a corporate enterprise. There is no different. And many of the academic officials, many of the administrators in the institution also served on corporate board, whether you believe it or not, and give advice to corporate board. So we are in a struggle, not only with the university, but with other corporate entities that are partnership with the university. And that's why even research now in many places have been compromised. So thank you very much for having a program like this. And I would like to salute you and keep this struggle going on.
Thank you very much. And I would also circulate information about the program you have, Philosophy Born Out of Struggle. It's been a very interesting program, and you've kept it on for a long time. Thank you very much.
And now it is the new program is that I've been doing for the past, why should I say, 8 years or so, is philosophy and religion in Africana tradition. That the notice that I send to you from time to time. That is the new program.
Okay, thank you very much. Justin, I don't know whether Dr. Daramola, are you on? I also know that Professor Yamu.
Yes, I am.
Okay, then you have the floor. You please introduce yourself, the part of the world you're from, and what the union situation is like.
Okay, yeah, I'm actually just trying to turn on my camera now.
Okay.
It looks like it's permanently off. I will try to do that, but just to save some time. I'm Justin Daramola by name. I'm based in South Africa. I'm with the Cape Peninsula University of Technology here in Cape Town. Well, I think I can say more about the COVID situation more than the aspect of unionism, because currently I do not really belong to any union. I'm also relatively, well, maybe about 4 years in the South African system. And let me say that coming into South Africa, I have a bit of aversion for unionism based on my experience from Nigeria. In the sense that to an extent, there is actually a lot of unionism in terms of the Nigerian system. Of course, there is a lot of called a lack of attention to education, generally from government, which also most times result in strikes and also disruption of the academic system. So really coming into South Africa, I was actually just more concerned about, getting my work done and all of that. So I've not really been into, and in my university is actually voluntary. So it's not, no one is actually compelled to join a union. But in terms of the COVID situation, South Africa happens to be one of the countries that have been affected a lot by COVID. And the advent of COVID has also brought a lot of changes into the way we operate as academics, as lecturers, and even as researchers. For example, since March 2020, I've actually been working from home. And that is like what it is with a lot of people here in South Africa. And also all our activities were also rendered fully online. But the truth of the matter is that most universities were not really prepared for that prior to COVID. So when COVID started and we had the general lockdown, it took maybe about 5 to 6 months really for a lot of universities and even lecturers to get going in terms of how to transition from the manual mode or the physical mode or face-to-face mode of teaching and learning to something that is fully online. There were also issues of also how to get the students on board. For example, the issue of a lot of students not even having devices to work with, also access to internet for them to actually use and all of that. And so government needed to invest more in infrastructure. And also, for example, providing students with free data so that they'll be able to actually access online resources and all that. And then on the part of the lecturers, a lot of lecturers had to be trained. For example, in terms of how to use learning management system like Moodle or Blackboard or any of the other ones to actually, as a means to actually facilitate learning. So there was that period of, I would say that maybe it took about 6 to 8 months really to actually have that kind of effective transition. But currently now, I think a lot of universities are now in a place where they are very comfortable. I mean, of course, we hope that the COVID situation will improve drastically, but if things should persist, I think a lot of universities and lecturers will actually be able to cope well. Yeah, because that period of learning and knowing what to do, we have been able to navigate that successfully. And now there is sufficient stability in terms of and capacity really to actually facilitate learning through the online platform. And of course, working from home also has become something that people have gotten used to. And I think that a lot of people are actually coping well. Of course, there are also issues of the mental and the psychological aspect of it. I mean, for example, like I said, I've been working from home, since March 2020. So I've not really had any physical meeting with my colleagues. But from time to time, we have virtual meetings and all of that. So that was not something that people were really used to before, but now it has more or less become something that we do, that we are now accustomed to. So I think that's just this general situation here in South Africa.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we've gone through everybody. Professor Yamo is the only one, but he had already indicated that he is multitasking. And I think we've also taken a lot of the time. And all I would just call would be to call Professor Ortiz and Oscar to just give closing remarks. And when after this meeting, we'll decide what, this is a pilot gathering to listen to ourselves from the United Kingdom, South Africa, Angola. Unfortunately, those from the lady from Ethiopia had to drop, maybe because of data or something like that. But I think generally, from what we've all heard, there is need for solidarity of some sort, of reaching out, of probably just listening to each other, and then we will draw some kind of inspiration from that. So let me yield the floor to Professor Ortiz, and then, Professor Yamo, you're okay. All right. Before you do that, Professor Ortiz, could you introduce yourself, Professor Yamo, and then give us a general overview of the union situation in South Africa and how the professors are coping with COVID?
Yeah, thank you for this forum. And I think, let me appreciate that first. Secondly, I am glad to see some faces here like yourself that I've been talking to for a long time, that I've not actually met. And Professor Demudia, him and I have been working together for some time, but we've never met. How are you doing, Efosa?
Yeah, it's fine. I just posted on the chat that I'm about to leave now.
Yeah.
I have another faculty senate meeting. We have a faculty senate meeting in 20 minutes. And I want to discuss with some of my colleagues.
We're good to see you, my brother.
Okay, thank you, Lord. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys have fun. Thank you. God bless. Excellent work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, host, and we have Professor Daramola, who have just spoken now. We are in the same institution, and we work together. The only difference is that I've been here longer than he has in South Africa. I think somehow he has mentioned and dealt with many of the things without repeating what he has said. We in South Africa are not very strong. We don't actually have academic union present. What we do have is a labor union, which consists or comprises of both academics and non-academic staff. And in South Africa, those labor unions are very, very strong in the universities. So if you are not in top management, you it is voluntary. You're free to join those unions. But somehow many of academics, particularly the professors, and I could say many of the doctors as well, they don't find the need to join those unions. You hardly find them being part of the union. So, and I think that's what my colleague, my friend and brother Daramola was saying, that he had no need, he didn't see the need to join. And this is the way many academics in South Africa feel about it. I think one of the reasons is because of the way it is run and the way their needs are taken care of. A good example is this during the COVID that we've had for almost 2 years now. Most professors or academics, they basically got what they wanted in terms of negotiating how they wanted to conduct their activities, carry out their duties. So in a situations like that, they do not see the need to join union. Also, and you will understand, I don't know much about the American and the UK way of thinking, specifically the academics. You know, in our union here that is being run by non-academics, the academic will think, why do I need to go and join this, you know, that is run by very junior people in the system? You know, and that's one way of thinking that sometimes deprive them from, you know, and what the second thing is that I've mentioned earlier, what's the point? Why do I want to deal with this? I've got a lot of work on my desk. I have no intention of getting into trouble. So why do I need to? Because union here is specifically about that. When you are in trouble, the union will fight tooth and nail and try and get you out of it. They take it upon themselves. So if you do not have any intention of getting to that route, you said, what's the point? Getting part of it. They said, save for the rainy day. Some academics join, but they very, very, very not active at all. So that is the state we have over here in South Africa. And I think the same goes in the region, okay? When I say in the region, excluding the West Africa, where Nigeria fall into. In the region here where you have Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia, etc., I've been opportune and privileged to work in some of those areas. I find that it's the same thing. There's no academic union, they have labor union. I think that is all I get to share now. And once again, I say thank you for this forum. And I didn't have enough detail about what this forum was going to focus on. Perhaps we would have invited or shared the invitation with some of the union people who would have been very, very keen in participating in a forum like this. But since this is just the beginning, and you will plan to have this again and again, we might then have a good idea. Now we have a better idea on bringing people who really like this kind of forum and see how we get many South African universities to participate in it.
Okay, on that note, Thank you very much, Professor Yam.
We do appreciate it. Thank you.
On that note, I would like to quickly call my contact person in South Africa, Johnny Muteba. He is the founder of the Pan-African Chambers of Arts and Culture, and somehow he interfaces between all of this group. Johnny, can you just take like 5 minutes to let us know, just a brief comment before we round it all up? Because yes, we spent almost 2 hours now, and by 2 o'clock, we would like to round it up. Okay, then.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you for inviting me to this amazing platform. The team has its genesis, actually a university. The idea, someone was attending an event by students